good. Could be better. You're probably thinking to yourself, there's not a huge difference between the first cup and the second cup of coffee that I drank in the video you just watched. That is partially true. I definitely could taste a very slight difference, but it wasn't incredibly noticeable. I'm also not a coffee expert, so there's probably a lot more things that I should be tasting that I'm not. But that being said, I did notice a little bit of a difference. As you can see in front of me, I have my new pour over setup and my old pour over setup. I'm going to talk a little bit about why having a pour over setup is a nice thing to have, and then I'll break down the pros and cons of these setups very quickly for you. I'm no coffee expert. I don't feel totally qualified to talk about this, but as I've made a lot of cups of coffee with this and starting to make a lot with this, I do feel like I can talk a little bit to at least the livability of both of these systems. Now, pour over setups in general consist of a grinder and a gooseneck kettle. This is a conical burr grinder, highly recommended for a more even grind size, and they don't add quite as much heat during the grinding process, which to my understanding can slightly change the flavor profile of a coffee bean. So this is a huge part of a good pour over setup. Something with adjustment for grind size is also going to be advantageous, as different brewing methods will have different grind settings that are best for it. And then another big part of a pour over setup is obviously your kettle. Something that is temperature controlled is ideal. Knowing what temperature the water is, for the same reason different brewing methods recommend different water temperatures. And then a gooseneck spout is very helpful for the actual pouring over process. It's a little bit more accurate. You can make sure you get your weights correctly, so your ratios are good. So yeah, definitely recommend getting these. If you don't, it ups your coffee game by quite a lot. I'll go into the pros and cons now. So this is my old setup. This is the Capresso Infiniti Pro. It is fairly clean for a coffee grinder. It has this nice little drawer setup to where the grounds fall into that, so any chaff or like little grounds will actually be kind of contained until you decide to clean them up. That's huge. And then the different grind settings, it has quite a few, which is nice. It can get fairly fine, so even if you are doing something like espresso shots, this is something that can grind mostly down to that size. It's not quite as fine as so much other nicer grinders, but it is pretty impressive for the price, which is about 90 bucks. The Bonavita temperature control kettle is the kettle I've had for quite a while. This is $130. I really like this because it has a pretty fast flow, so you can pour fairly quickly if you want to. I noticed that with the Stagg that I kind of missed that, but I'll get into that in a second. My cons for both of these is they're both very loud and not very quick. I didn't realize how loud and slow they were until I have something a little bit nicer, and I realized, oh, taking a long time to get the water to temperature and the grinding process being very long and loud isn't necessarily normal. But that's really my only gripe with these. They get the job done very well for pour overs. It's just not the prettiest, not the fastest, not the quietest. My new setup, so this is the Fellow Stagg in polished copper and the Fellow Ode. This is the V1. It's not the new one they just came out with. I've had a great experience with these so far. The huge pro for me is they look phenomenal. They definitely are more pleasing to look at, more pleasing to operate, which is a huge thing for me because I do make coffee every day. Pros of the Ode is very fast. Extremely quick, and it is not very loud, so I really like that. It looks phenomenal, and there's a little bit more adjustability in the grind setting, so that's awesome. I haven't been able to get it to its finest setting yet. You're supposed to kind of break it in a little bit before you start grinding at the finest setting, but I have heard that's the biggest complaint with the Ode, is how the burrs are designed. You can't get quite as fine as some other grinders. Which isn't a huge deal to me because, like I said, I primarily do pour over coffee. The Stagg, it is a really beautiful piece of equipment. I really like operating it. The interface is a lot more, for one, aesthetically pleasing, but it's also a little bit easier and more intuitive. It gets up to temperature faster than the Bonavita, and it is quieter as well. So really like all of those things. My only gripe about the Stagg is it pours very slowly. Great when you're actually making a cup of pour over coffee, not so great if you're making tea or an Americano or anything like that. My only gripe with the Ode is it is a little bit messy, just with the design of having the canister. Whenever you finish grinding, some static electricity will typically keep some chaff like kind of up in the, I don't know, the grind chute, and whenever you remove it, you will like almost definitely drop some chaff onto the bottom of the grinder or the counter. Not a huge deal. Coffee grinding is typically not the cleanest process anyway, and that is a sacrifice I will make for how pretty and how fast this thing is. Brewing method is something that I guess I can show you for my purpose. I use a Chemex and a Kalita Wave for the most part. I do have a fairly mediocre espresso machine. It's nothing fancy, it does pull a decent shot, and I also use AeroPresses for travel coffee, and then sometimes I'm filling a cup of AeroPress in the morning. So those are the methods that I brew with. If you are interested in picking up either of these setups, I will include links in the description below. We greatly appreciate if you go through those links. We do get a little bit of a kickback. The last thing that I want to tell you before you make your decision, because that's totally why you're watching these videos for a coffee review. I did not pay full price for these. I found a deal where both of these were $300 before tax, where these typically are about $220 before tax. So this was a very clear upgrade that I wanted to do because of that. The MSRP for these currently on Fellow's website is $450 for the brushed copper or polished copper and the Ode V1. Would I pay $450 for them? I'm not sure. I really think this does a really great job for 220 bucks. But that being said, this is way prettier. I enjoy the process more. So there's a lot to be said for that as well. So I cannot make those decisions for you. There's some really great coffee channels out there that do a much better job reviewing these than I do, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a breakdown since you just watched me cinematically go buy these. Other quick shout out, Onyx makes incredible coffee if you're in the Northwest Arkansas area. They are some of the best coffee you can get. And I did not buy these at Onyx. I know we kind of staged it to make it look that way. Onyx does sell some coffee products, but they did not have that good of a deal on these, so don't go asking. But if you do want really phenomenal coffee, definitely go pick some up from them. Yeah, that's it. We'll see you all in the next one.